what's like a range of the comp cost and what the range of the cost? I mean, let's say you don't have it all. Like what's a higher one? Would that be like at a like let's say did you go to tax the one in Philadelphia?
That was in a lot. That probably was in the range. I mean, that would be. All right. So you guys give me the next talk?
Yeah.
You have slides or anything?
I'm curious
If people are asking you questions, try to like
Reiterate
it. Just because I was trying to monitor it and the. No problem.
Yeah.
Just I'm iterating my process of managing.
I will do so.
And just so you know, if you're gonna walk around.
Yeah, I'm like looking at the.
Yeah. Oh, you got it. So this is the camera. It's got a pretty wide frame.
So my ears.
You're on it. You could go.
You could go
As
farther.
long as you're in front of one of these doors.
There's a lag. There's a lag.
What is it? What are we trying to?
We're dancing.
Oh, okay.
I could go down the stairs.
I could point the camera down if you wanted to catch it. Catch the moon.
Hopefully my friend had seen it. It just looked like I was getting it.
Yeah.
You can just tell people, it's like, yeah, it's all right. They got on video and everything.
I'm not saying
Just be the moderator.
You don't have any thoughts.
There's a little power dynamics going on with that. I'm not sure. I'm okay with that.
we should introduce ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah, make sure to do that.
All right, so we'll actually start right a little bit minute late. But anyways, guys, this is how to build a community for your business. What we're going to be talking about today are various topics. We're going to be talking about inclusivity. We're going to be talking about how to welcome people into your community to actually help out. We're going to be talking about how to actually promote and actually grow that community. We're also going to be talking about how to sustain that ability and actually keep it going and keep it moving and keep the activity going, I guess is the best way to put it. So just to introduce myself, I'm Gary Pope. I used to technically run a YouTube channel called Late to the Table, and currently I'm actually running my own marketing business called GA Marketing, and I also have Matt Fantastic here, if you want to introduce yourself.
So I own Elm City Games in New Haven. I am a full-time designer. I also publish weird indie games with Killjoy. I'm creative director at Vice Games. I also teach game design at a few universities. Just got back from teaching in China, a course there. Most of the game things.
So I'm Harrison Guzman. I am the head organizer of a local gaming group, meetup / Facebook kind of group called Game On Chits and Giggles, based primarily out of Central Connecticut, Hartford region. We do some cool stuff with Matt's group too. And also I'm the head of Hartford Extra Life. If you folks don't know what Extra Life is, I'm sure to give it a shameless plug, but it's we engage people to gather their friends and family in their local gaming communities to raise money for a local children's hospital. So in Hartford's case, we raise money for the Connecticut Children's Medical Center, and kind of being able to meld those two hats together has always been something that's been important to me.
I forgot one other thing I wanted to plug because you said that. So I also co-founder of the New Haven Game Makers Guild and Fantasticon, which is the weekend of May 4th this year. So anybody that's here, New Haven's not that far away, so you should come hang out sometimes.
All right, so getting into the discussion. So inclusivity, if you're not exactly even, no offense, living under a rock for the past decade, what is inclusivity? Inclusivity is basically allowing anyone, no matter their race, age, their gender identity, or anything like that. It's just basically being inclusive to everyone for just being welcoming, in other words. So we're actually going to be touching on that topic on how to actually go about and be inclusive to people. So what are some why is like, say for example, like why is like a safe place actually like actually do you want to actually explain what a safe space is actually, Matt?
Yes, well, I'm going to be way more aggressive about it than polite Gary. Basically, I am of a mind that we are at a place both in gaming and in the world at large where no more free passes for people. If you are just like, oh, boys will be boys, oh, they don't know how to act, oh, they're gamers, like, fuck that noise. It's super It is, and this is why I wanted to talk about inclusivity and safe spaces first, because if we don't have that, like, who cares about anything else, right? So it is incredibly important from the top down to not put up with that bullshit. We have, in my group, a cohesive and specific harassment policy, as well as just a general grievances type policy that covers people being treated poorly. We have a couple different levels of that, where you might get a single warning if it is kind of like, well, you know, like maybe you thought this was kind of a different vibe, but then there's a lot of stuff that it's just straight up like, get the fuck out of here, like you're done. We also even do that in the shop. So the shop is primarily a game library. We're a game cafe. We moved locations, don't have a kitchen anymore, but we actively throw people out all the time. Which, to get to the topic of business, is actually good business, because it turns out like there's a lot more people that aren't assholes that are much more appreciative of the fact that you've created an environment where they can feel comfortable and welcome and know that they're not going to get some shitty homophobic comment or something terribly said about women, or you know, whatever other nonsense that the like 0.1% of our community thinks is okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. And I mean, just to actually go on that same exact topic, in terms of like how to actually like deal with these people. Have you ever actually had experiences in how to actually deal with these people that are problematic? Like besides also throwing them out, the other ways you could go about doing this as well?
I mean, in general, just like to kind of piggyback off of what Matt said, is you kind of like inclusivity. If you make that the important part of the communities that you build, you know, make sure that people understand, you know, it really doesn't matter where you come from or what your beliefs are when you're like a paladin, like, you know, storming a salmon spawning area. I mean, there's a board game about that. Yeah. But I mean, like, when people feel that I mean, that's kind of one of the most important like tenets of your group or your community, then people do a good job at kind of enforcing that, saying like, hey, that's not cool and stuff like that. Unfortunately, we've had some scenarios in our gaming group where people felt harassed, or even just like, one of the biggest things is that in gaming groups, you know, you schedule events and people will like say that they're going to be in this place at this time. So sometimes it's kind of important to just make sure that people feel like they're like safe, kind of engaging in that community in a way that, like, you know, like someone won't really can keep tabs on somebody at a certain point in time. So just kind of making sure that like the community feels safe in a way. So like we've closed our group in a way that like people understand that, you know, this like you can combat harassment without like exposing yourself to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and also to further iterate what the story Harrison's referring to, in our Facebook group, the Game On Facebook group, we actually at one point had to close it because there were literally trolls harassing people, directly messaging people, going on all the forums, stuff like that, talking to people. We had to close everything because they just were not being friendly to everyone. They were basically making the place not seem as welcome and as nice as we normally are. So that's one of the things that you gotta basically do. You gotta manage your community really well. You gotta keep the tabs on people. You gotta I wouldn't say control people, but you gotta basically make sure that everyone is actually sticking up to the code and actually treating everyone fairly. Not doing that, people look at that from a distance and they say, do not want to be a part of that, and you'd rather want them to be a part of that, of course. But let's actually move on to welcoming, unless if anyone else has anything to speak about in terms of inclusivity. Y'all? No. All right. So in terms of welcoming, basically this is referring to how do you actually get people to initially join your group, and how, like, I guess the best way to put it is, what is their first impressions? How do you basically fix that first impressions for them when they join the group? So, Harrison, like, for example, how do you make it easy for people to join?
So, kind of in the beginning of the life of the gaming group, I wasn't actually the founding member, but I was just trying to get into this new hobby. You know, the tabletop YouTube channel was kind of a thing, so like I didn't really know too much of games going on, but I kind of like took that step in joining the group, and I had no idea who anybody was, but I went to a game store, and I knew that there was an event there, and I felt welcomed. I felt like, you know, like, hey, I don't know any of these games. I had like my copy of Munchkin still in shrink. I don't know if any of you play Munchkin, but that's just like an adorable thing to have people like be excited about. But like just like the welcoming that people gave to me, like that they were like ready for me to play, and that was something that I really wanted to bottle up, because that feeling of being welcomed is something that like I want to encourage people to do, because like it's kind of scary to jump into like a new environment, and like especially like a new hobby and stuff like that, and like when you have people sharing it or encourage other people to share what the hobby means to them, I think that that's something that's like really nice. And
Yeah, and that's actually really important, because like say for example, if also someone joins a group, one of the most important things you got to do when someone joins a group is that you actually have to make personal sacrifices in that situation. It's not saying oh, you got to basically have no fun whatever you're doing in terms of having people grow, but you got to really make a personal sacrifice. Like for example, if you're starting a board game group, and if someone new joins, you notice that they're a new person, you kind of hate playing all these games like, let's say, Catan, you know, these games, Ticket to Ride and stuff like that.
You're wrong if you hate playing Catan.
Yeah, still, yeah. But let's not get into that. That's another day. But let's say, for example, if you hate those games, if someone joins the group and they're saying, oh, I love those games, that's the game I want to play today, but you hate those games. Don't be that dick that's just like, no, I hate that game, we're not playing that, we're going to sit here and play Power Grid for the next 6 hours in a 6-player game, whatever. Don't do that to people. Actually give those personal sacrifices. Sit down, play with that person, make them feel inclusive, make them feel welcomed into the group, and don't have those awkward first interactions with people. You're trying to do a good first impression with these people, so try not to do that. And when it comes to video games and stuff like that, you're trying to build a community with that, it's really along the lines of the same thing. For example, if you're talking to, let's say for example, you're starting up a Smash Brothers group or something like that, and someone comes in and they're like, oh, I want to play the N64 version of Smash. It's like, hey man, we're all on Ultimate right now. It's just like, give the guy a day. Let him play the 64 version of Smash.
I think it's important to like let people like have the same journey that you did, because like I'm sure not everybody started like playing Power Grid for 6 hours straight. You know, like playing like being a person that starts to play Catan, or you meet with Munchkin, like you'll get to introduce people into like more of like the deeper part of your community as well. Like once you kind of get through that, like, hey, you like this game, I want to show you this. But like if you kind of start out with kind of an elitist attitude about the hobby or the group, it's kind of like can turn people off, and you don't really want that.
Yeah.
The thing is that the nature of gaming in a public physical space, whether it's digital or analog, is that people have to interact, right? And that is going to be there, especially in tabletop, which I think is where most of us we are more prominent. You know, you have to interact with people, and I can play what I would consider like a terrible game, but still have a ton of fun with the right environment and having a good time with people. And I can play a game that I absolutely love with people that suck, and it's not a good time. And so being welcoming to people, making people come into that space is, you know, like everybody remembers that feeling of going to the lunchroom, right? And you're like, I don't know where to sit, right? You know, like all that really awkward feeling. So as leaders in the group, it's super important to make that effort to introduce yourself, to help get people on-ramped into what the flow of the group is, right? I've been to different groups, I've run a bunch of them over the years, and we all have different ways of like choosing a game or pairing up, right? A lot of times there will be groups that are, you know, we're gonna play some large group size filler for the first hour so people can drift in and out. Other times, people are just going to jump into big long games right before. How do you call dibs if you're playing, you know, in a Smash Brothers tournament, right? You go to the arcade, you throw a quarter up, right? But how do we handle, you know, who's got next? What are the rules about who stays on, right? So we want to be actively encouraging people to not just from the top down doing this, but every single person you want to inculcate an environment where someone new shows up and immediately they're met with A, like just kind of a welcoming attitude, and B, getting shown like, hey, here's how things work. Like, do you want to play this? Do you want to play that? Like, here's how to interact with the social dynamic of this particular group. And so that is probably like the biggest thing, is that first impression, right? If you go to some place and you're awkward and weird and it kind of isn't great, then you're not going to come back, right? Whereas if you come, even if you don't like the games that you're playing, but you have a good time, people are welcoming, it's a fun social activity, they're going to want to come back and maybe make you play hybrid or whatever.
I think too, like especially when you have social events or settings like where you're playing a bunch of video games, and it might be easy for you to kind of like stick with the same group, like especially if there's a bunch of games going on, and like when you finish this game and you're already 4 people ready to play another game. But I think that it's kind of good to challenge yourself and other people to kind of like jump out and see other people. I'm kind of sick in a way that like I love like meeting new people and aggressively introducing myself to people, but I think that sometimes some people might have like a little bit of anxiety about like, you know, branching off into meeting new people and stuff like that. And just kind of like, if you encourage other people to do that, then you'll kind of see like other members of your community, just like you're saying, from the top down, like using that same behavior to kind of meet new people. And it's exciting to kind of learn why people were there, or like what's important to them for that hobby, because people go out of their way to go into like these places where we play games. And
to actually touch on what Harrison said, revolving around anxiety and stuff like that, one good way to actually assist with that is to actually have a really good welcoming presence online. For example, if someone is joining a meetup group that you created or a Facebook group that you created, it helps a lot if you, potentially have an automated system that actually kind of welcomes them. It seems very non-organic and stuff like that, but there are ways in which in Meetup it's actually automatic that does it. It's within the system. And it's also just like a little intro, like for example, in our Meetup group, if I'm not mistaken, our Meetup group, when you first join the group, you are actually, you're given a welcome message, and you're also advised to actually join our Facebook group to join in the conversation, because that's where we're way more active at. So little things like that can help out with making people more inclusive and make the transition of actually joining and actually getting involved in everything a lot easier. So just make your online presence a lot easier to, if someone messages you, answer back. Someone just messaged me yesterday because they showed up to a meetup event and they couldn't find anyone there. And apparently, like, Harrison went to that night, and it was apparently actually not the most active night. So it's kind of like hard to actually find where we were. But yeah, just be sure to answer those messages. Be sure to actually post often and talk often. Try to create discussion points every once in a while to keep people active and keep people actually understanding that there is some sort of presence here and there are people that actually do something here. And that's just basically to help you out with the online side of things, because like not everyone is as crazy as Harrison is and to run up to people randomly and start talking to them. So if it helps you a little bit, just fixing things online can actually help ease that a little bit for you. But let's actually move on to actually how to promote and actually to grow that group now. Regarding this, we're actually going to start off with a pretty basic topic. And I personally call it the Reddit rule. What did you call something else different, Harrison?
it's just like give and take.
Yeah, give and take. And basically, essentially what the bare principle of is you give way more than you take. A lot of people say it's like a 10-1 rule, where you give 10 things and you take one thing. This is essential to basically growing a group. And the reason why is that it sounds like you're almost selfish, where you're saying, hey, I'm going to eventually take something. But the thing is that you want to give so much to the community that by the time you're asking to take something, it sounds very small. Like, for example, let's say hypothetically, if you are running a group for, like, let's say hypothetically you're trying to get play testers for your game or something like that. What you would normally do, what a lot of people do, and that's wrong, is that they'll say, hey, join my playtesting event. People go to that playtesting event and they're just trying to playtest their own game, and they're like, hey, screw everyone else. What you actually should technically be doing is you should be running playtesting events and saying, hey, for the first like 2-3 months, I'm not even going to playtest my own game. I'm going to be playtesting everyone else's game. That's basically the give 10 times and then take once, because after about 10 times of playing other people's games, people are going to be like, oh, this guy has been a douchebag this entire like 3 months I've joined this group. Maybe I should actually try out his game, because he tried out my game, he tried out Harrison's game, he tried out Matt's game. Let me actually give his game a shot after a while. So that's kind of one of the approaches to that. But is there any other ways you could promote in your group, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, well, so memes, right? It sounds really stupid, but both from a business perspective on, like Elm City Games, like business, social media stuff, but also personal and more social group environments, I post so many stupid gaming memes, and they're funny and they're great, and you create an environment where people want to follow what you're doing. This is kind of like a classic sort of like marketing social media thing now is, like 80-20, right? So you want 80% just the giving, like here's interesting content, here's an article, here's something that's going on in the community, whatever. I find that like memes are great, D&D memes especially, like aces. And then people are going to pay attention to what it is that you're saying. People are going to follow your social media presence. If more people are interacting with the things that you are putting out there, the more likely they are to see follow-up things, right? So if you create a feed where people are just like, oh, what's this news? What's this? What's that? Then when you post something about like, hey, we need everybody to come out for this thing, they are going to be much more receptive to when you ask for something. If they are, like people in this era, I think, especially younger people, are totally okay with being targeted, like and profiled in marketing, right? Like I personally, it's kind of weird and creepy, but at the same time, like I'd much rather see ads that are like reasonably interesting to me. And so if we're creating this environment where it's like, here's a funny thing, here's this interesting article, here's another funny thing, look at this cat. Then when we do something that's a little bit more markety, right? Like, oh, well, you should come out, we're doing a Catan tournament, or here's this thing that we want you to come give us money for. Then people are going to say, oh, well, like this is, these are the cat people. Like, this is cool. We'll give them some bucks.
Yeah, and also leading to that, like Matt said, if people are actually more willing to actually check out that stuff, going to according to how all algorithms work, like Facebook, Instagram, all those other things, they're way more likely to see it in the future rather than not seeing it, as opposed to if you posted nothing at all. So,
so I kind of want to like piggyback of what Matt said, just like even like kind of more specifically about like running events and running a gaming community. Like sometimes like you run your reoccurrences or you do like lots of one-off events, especially if they're things that you kind of detect that the community wants. Like have the conversation about like what you think that your community is like looking for, even if it's just like just peruse the comments and see like somebody also brought up escape rooms or something like that, and just like if you can do something that still feels organic in a way that like can help your community, like then run an event like that. And then one of the cool things that happens after that is that like people feel like their comments and their voice is being heard in a way that like, oh wow, maybe I can propose this event or something like that. And like once people kind of feel that like it's more of a community, like even if it does seem like you're doing the 80%, you get like 20%. Like even like Melissa's like one of like one of like our success stories. It's just like people communicate in the forums and start interesting conversations, and you have a network that I'm not connected to, and you'll kind of have like people paying off and building your own community for you in a way that like feels good. Like
and also
I was just gonna say something that's super important, and I think this kind of bridges the gap between getting things going and really sustaining and building it, is this attitude of if we build it, they will come, right? When we start a new event, or we start just, like when we were starting groups, when Meetup, I'm old now, right? So I was there when Meetup was kind of getting going, and we'd be doing these game events, and 3 people would show up.
Yeah.
And you kind of, I don't want to say suffer through, but you sort of grind it out, right? Mm-hmm. You are like, hey, we're starting this new Thursday night thing at this particular location. I'm going to commit to going there for the next, 2 months, 3 months, even if nobody shows up. And we're going to be there, we're going to sit there. When you are taking on a leadership role in creating or sustaining a community, it is also work, right? Ultimately, this is something that we're excited about, and we want to be sharing our passions and helping to build a community around things that we are interested in and meeting cool people and all these really positive things. But also, it is sort of a job, and you need to approach it with that mindset that you really need to be willing to put in the work, put in the time, welcoming people, playing games that you don't necessarily like, really just being there. And showing up is a huge thing, right? If somebody shows up to your event that you listed and nobody's there, like they're not gonna come back, right? Whereas if it's like weird and you're like the only person there and you drag one of your friends, and you're like, it's cool, but like we're still gonna have a good time, right? We're still gonna interact, we're still gonna maybe play something, we're still going to do something, right? Same thing with a digital forum environment, right? You need to post, you need to put things out there, right? You might get 2 likes, and that's fine. You just need to continue doing that because otherwise people aren't going to find you. People aren't going to know you exist. People aren't going to engage with you. There's always going to be that first person, right? There's always going to be that 5th person. Way before you get to a community of 100, 200, even a dozen people, you have to start small, and you have to really commit to being there and doing that.
Yeah, usually whenever people ask me for advice where it's trying to start their own community in their own area, I always usually say if you're not willing to have a really shitty game night or whatever you're whatever kind of event you're trying to do for a year, don't bother. Even though it doesn't always take that long, but there is a lot of work when you're trying to actually do these things, and you have to be extremely persistent, and you just have to grind through it like Matt was saying. If you're not willing to put in the work and actually be willing to actually show up, and then potentially there's no one there, and it's like, okay, what can I do differently next week? Then it's one of those things where you just got to be extremely persistent. But
consistency is just so important, right?
Okay.
If we are doing a first Saturday of the month event or every Thursday night event, like you need to do that.
Yeah.
Like you can't just say, oh, well, I got busy. Like, obviously life gets in the way. This is not necessarily your entire career. For some of us, it sort of is. But like, if you are saying that we're going to start this thing, like you need to do that thing. You need to be consistent because people are going to stop caring if every other time we're supposed to do this, we don't really, and then, people have to pay attention to the schedule, and then they're worried, did I get the memo? Like, whatever, I'm just not even going to deal with it. You need to be very consistent in what it is, and a lot of that boils down to knowing yourself. You really need to be self-reflective about what role you want to have and what role you are capable of having. There's a lot of people that try to start groups, and then they realize that maybe it's more work than they thought, or maybe it's less fun than they thought it was going to be, or really, I just want some people to play D&D with, so I'm just looking for 4 people, really. I'm going to make this whole big thing. We're going to start this new role-playing community, but really, I just want to find 4 people to play D&D with. And don't do that.
yeah, there's way easier ways to do that. Just join some other group and find people through that. We literally have a friend of ours named Benji. He joins so many events. He actually doesn't that much anymore because he found his own group by just going to all our events, and he's happy to actually admit that. But I'm going to slightly more specifics when it comes to promoting. Let's actually talk about the app specifically. Like, for example, let's talk about Meetup first. Meetup is Matt was just saying he's too old for Meetup, but actually Meetup is actually
I've been using Meetup for
okay, gotcha. Okay, sorry about that. But no, Meetup is actually still a very relevant application to use even to this day. For example, our Meetup group right now in the Connecticut area for Game On is around 1,500 members, and our Facebook group is around 500 members. Now, still, I would say most of the people that join our Facebook group are still coming from Meetup. And then we actually bring them over to Facebook through that. So Meetup, the great thing about Meetup is that it's almost like it's super targeted because people are specifically going there to join a group, which is this is all about. So if they're searching for whatever thing you're actually a part of, it's going to be super easy for them to actually find it. Unlike Facebook, which their search algorithm sucks. So in my opinion, pay the money to actually have a Meetup group if you are that dedicated to actually growing it. I know you have a free trial for some time. I can't remember how many. It's like 50 members or something like that.
Once you get past a certain membership count, then
it's 50.
It's 50?
Yeah.
I'm going to get real business about Meetup now. So, who here actually, this is an important question, who here is just interested in starting communities as kind of a fun thing, you want more people to play games with, et cetera, and who here right now, show of hands, is professionally doing this? You own a game shop, you own a game cafe. This is real dollars and cents shit that you want to hear about. All right, so this is for the 2 of you. So Meetup is incredible because it sounds kind of expensive, but the cost to acquire really solid leads and really solid people is incredibly low when compared to most other forms of advertising. Because everyone that joins your Meetup group is a high quality lead. They are actively interested in the thing that you are trying to sell them. Mm-hmm. They are saying, I want to know about your game events. I want to give you money to do this thing, which is crazy. It's awesome when compared to just passive advertising on Facebook, even targeted. You get so much out of a Meetup group. You also get 3 Meetup groups when you sign up to pay for it, which means that you can do specifically targeted Meetup groups. I actually own 6 right now because we have so many different things going on. But it's incredible when you look at the siloing of some of these groups, right? You have an RPG group. There's a ton of people in that RPG group that don't give a shit about board games. You have a ton of people in your board games group that don't give a shit about RPGs. We have a ton of people that are in the game design group that don't really care about coming out for some of the more social events.
Yeah.
And so utilizing Meetup, like I can't oversell the value of Meetup right now. And I can't believe how sustained it has been in terms of like there's constantly new people joining the Meetup groups, like constantly. Yeah. And these are people that are saying, advertise to me, tell me about your stuff. So from a business perspective, it's like an easy slam dunk. From a more hobbyist community perspective, you know, you're going to have to weigh how much you personally want to invest versus do you want to charge people to join. If you charge people $1 an event, all of a sudden you're going to more than pay for the Meetup group, and you're going to be able to do stuff like, hey, we got pizza at this event, or, you know, I bought some things for a tournament that we're going to do at this, and, you know, we're going to give away prizes. So Meetup is really just the best thing, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of the ways I've actually heard of paying for your Meetup group, because me and Harrison actually paid for the one in Connecticut, and we don't have any. No, we did fun. We did a fun. We just did one. I forgot about that. But yeah, there's various. Yeah, but there are various ways to actually raise funds if you're just doing this as a hobby and just doing this for fun. If you're doing it in that way, one of the ways I've seen is that people will allow new members to join and join an event, do whatever they want that first event for free. They don't have to do anything. But the second time they come, they actually do need to pay. It's only a one-time fee. They only charge them like $5. And if you have someone join, like a new person join, let's say hypothetically, if a new person joins once a week, that pays the dues, if I'm not mistaken, right? The dues is like $250 around there-ish.
I think it depends on your size. Yeah.
Oh yeah, true.
It does not.
It does not.
It does not. Okay, but yeah, if you have one new person joining every single week and it's their second event, they're paying $5. That pays for your dues for an entire year, I believe. But
oh, absolutely. I mean, like you said, you have over what 1,500 people.
Yeah, we have 1,500 people
across my groups. I gave some away to other people or whatever, but you know, like I had over 5,000 people across a number of groups. If everybody gave me $1, that's like 20 times what the cost of the meetup is, right? And obviously some of those people aren't going to, but you know, as a business, you're gonna monetize that like no problem in terms of selling product or charging day passes or memberships to come play your game library. You know, so we do at our spot, Home City Games, we do 2 free monthly meetup events. We have a third Friday and first Saturday, totally free. And our conversion rate on that is insanely high. And we shuttle a lot of those people into monthly memberships, or they come back one time and buy a $10 day pass to come play games, and we've like more than paid for the meetup group.
Yeah. So you just like, I think that Meetup unfortunately doesn't have like the most amazing way to kind of engage with like conversations. Like there's a bit of like forums and you can say going and you can comment on individual recurrences or something like that. But like be ready for Meetup to kind of cast a wide net. Like maybe it's great because you can also see like what some of the new people that are joining your group are interested in too. So like being able to use that as a way to kind of kick off a conversation, or even like encourage people to join your Facebook group, which is kind of the funnel that we do. We just kind of like encourage people to like have those communications there. But like if you provide a good enough service that you can be like, hey guys, you want to just give me like $5 like in like every once in a while, like you can you know, pay off those dues pretty well. Like you're providing a service because like, you know, people can be doing anything else other than hanging out with you and your friends, and like really that's what it is. It's just a bunch of friends meeting together. And
all right, so we kind of talked a bit about Meetup. Let's actually move over to Facebook. I'm actually curious about your take on this, Matt, if you've ever done it before. But let's talk about specifically with promoting it within Facebook's realm. It's a little bit way more difficult actually than Meetup. Granted that there are ways you could pay your way out of it, such as Facebook ads and stuff like that. In my personal experience when running Facebook ads, let's say specifically for an event that you're running or what have you, a lot of people will click interest, but not a lot of those people will actually show up from my experience. And I've done this at least maybe, I don't know. Do you have
that's quite the understatement.
Yeah. It's like, yeah. So and just to give you some like rough numbers, to give you an idea of like what I'm talking about, the last time I've ever did this, I spent roughly about, I think it was $50 on advertisements. Throughout that entire time, I think I got about 150 to 200 people interested in the event. Out of all those people that I've never seen before that are just from publicly advertising, I might have saw one person maybe show up from that listing. So am I saying don't advertise? No, but I'm not saying rely on it. That's the thing. Don't go into it thinking like, oh, I got $300 I can spend on Facebook advertisements. Let's throw those advertisements out there. We're going to get a ton of people in here. Well, I wouldn't bank it on that personally, but.
So one thing about Facebook in general, like, and I'm not in this demographic anymore. I'm actually in like the 2 demographics only now. The kids are not on Facebook. The youths, the young adults are like, Facebook is so beat, and like more and more people even in my generation are getting off because of privacy concerns and all this stuff, and Facebook being kind of a shitty company. So Facebook is definitely like ups and downs. That said, this is for the business people, but also relevant to other people. When you do your targeting, do not target people that are interested in games. You're going to get a much better return on your investment looking at people that are tertiary or secondary nerds. We do a lot of targeting towards like people that have expressed an interest in Game of Thrones or knitting or puzzles, things like that, because people that are gamers, they're going to kind of seek out and try to find what it is that you do, especially in tabletop, right? Because tabletop, like, you have to have people to play a game. I move to a new city, I get involved, I get interested in the hobby, I see something on the internet or whatever. Well, I'm going to search Game Store. I'm going to search like gaming group, and I'm going to find that on my own. I'm going to actively do that. Whereas people that maybe don't know that this is going on, oh shit, there's a game? Yeah, like, I'd always been interested in checking out games. Like, those are the people that we want to be targeting with our advertising, because the people that are into it are going to find us. The people that are maybe into it and are predisposed to be into it, that's who we need to let know that we exist, right? You like Game of Thrones? Well, like, we're doing a Game of Thrones board game night.
Oh,
right?
that's fine.
Come check that out. That's going to draw a ton more people in that are not otherwise going to see you. So Facebook's really, really good at targeting very specific things, and just figure out your targeting to those kind of side things, right? And what it is that you want to promote, right? So we're promoting weekday afternoon Scrabble events. Well, like, I'm not targeting like young men that are interested in gaming, right? We're targeting, you know, like more senior aged people that are probably retired, or at least have a more casual schedule, and are interested in just kind of a social outlet. And yeah, we like Scrabble, that's great. So all of a sudden we're drawing in this demographic. Those people weren't going to go on Meetup and say like, gaming events. No, they're just now seeing like, this is a cool thing, right? When we think about who we are competing with, it's like a whole bunch of shit, right? Like, even in digital games online, things like that, like, there are so many choices that people will be spending their time, so many different events people could be going to. You know, in New Haven, we have a ton of stuff going on all the time. You know, like, Yale has like 5 events every hour that are free and open to the public and incredibly interesting and awesome. And then we have all this other community stuff going on, and then we have all this other for-profit stuff going on. So what we need to do is show people that there is another alternative. But, you know, we're competing with movies. Mm-hmm. We're competing with going out to the bar. You know, like, we're competing with this much, much wider group. And those are the people that we really need to make that effort to bring in when we're talking about our advertising and reaching out to new people.
Now, actually, to be relative to that, like Matt was saying, like, targeting people that are Game of Thrones for a Game of Thrones night, you are a million times better joining a Facebook group related to Game of Thrones and posting in there if you are allowed to post there. I would say, like, every single time, let's say, for example, I used to actually run bar nights. And with those bar nights, board game bar nights, like I said, I used to run Facebook advertisements to them. The way I got actually the most response and the most people to actually join those events was me going to local craft beer groups and posting there that we're having a game night at this bar. So that's probably the way better time to spend your time instead of doing Facebook advertisements, in my opinion, if you're trying to build a community and group. Because in that situation, like Matt said, you're getting relative people. But the best thing about it is that when it comes to Facebook's algorithm, people are going to most likely see the notifications for those things and actually then check it out, especially if it pops out to them, if it's something that they're interested in.
I think too, like, you also have to be kind of ready to not only like look outside of the box for your advertising, but like, we have this weird thing going on where like we have this huge like network of librarians that just want to do board game nights, and like Jen Bartlett, if you're like paying attention, like, she's been leading this cool thing where she's been getting all these like librarians just to like, you know, like, do board game nights, because who knew that like people that like to read books like to play board games, like, so like something that's kind of neat where like all of these people are going together, and then they get to nibble at the hobby, and then they are addicted, and then they don't read books anymore. But I'm sure they do. But actually, like yeah. I mean, like there are also some cool events that have been melding that. I think that there is like some of them are having a game design competition around like making games for your favorite like novel or something like that. So like people love opportunities to kind of take the things that they're nerdy about and like mix them. So
Yeah, so really just mix up the kind of events that you're doing. Actually, really try going out of your way, like Harrison said, to think outside the box when it comes to events. Don't just do the typical. I mean, it doesn't hurt to have like the typical weekly events, stuff like that. There's nothing wrong with that. And those are actually great. But every once in a while, try to mix things up a bit because that does stir things up and it does get people's interest pretty well.
Well, building on that, one of the things too is that people are interested. We are social creatures, generally speaking, right? We're looking to know people and meet people and engage with people. Even if we are trying to build a community of playing online in a digital game, if you are able to create that physical, real person interaction, that community is going to be a million times stronger, right? If I'm online playing with randos, like, I don't give a shit, man. Like, whoever you are, I'm just going to scroll through to somebody else, right? But if we have a physical community of people, we all get together and we, play Warcraft, right? So I was a big World of Warcraft player for a while, and our guild was really founded on, there were a couple different branches, but it was people that knew each other in real life. And we had a much more successful experience with that because there was that personal connection, right? So try to build something locally and get those people together because now, like, hey, like, I know you, like, I know you, like, this is cool. We're going to go on, like, we're going to set a time where we're maybe going to play this game together. Actually knowing a person creates just such a massively different bond and engagement with that. And so, like, just having things in that physical space, even if they're not specifically super game related, right? Like, hey, like we're gonna go do this escape room, right? You guys have been having great success with escape rooms. That has nothing really to do with gaming, but everybody that comes out for that escape room now they're like, oh shit, I know Harrison, he's pretty cool. Yeah, I'll go check out that game night, right? Bringing people into this physical space is just going to build bridges so much stronger and so much more effectively than solely online.
Oh yeah, and also going on to that a little bit more. Let's say hypothetically, if you want to actually create a group and you're actually trying to build it up, go to other people's events that are relative to yours. Don't be stingy. Go to other people's events. I mean, don't go there just to promote your own event. Say, hey, I'm doing this thing on Thursday. But seriously, make the effort to actually go out, meet people, because when all of a sudden you post about it yourself, then people are actually going to recognize you. Be like, oh, I had a great time with what's the name at that game night before. For example, like Harrison was just talking about Jen, who's a librarian friend of ours. Her game night's actually, she only been doing it for like 2 years now, maybe? Yeah, something like that. And she actually started out by first off going to all of our game nights and going to all our events and helping out here and there and stuff like that. Then the second that she was actually running her events, those things went crazy. Like I think first night she was probably getting at least 20, 30 people showing up right out of the gate just because she knew everyone and everyone knew who she was. And they knew that they were going to walk into an event and be dealing with some jerk or something like that. So
yeah, and she gets game designers down too. So like once you build enough of a big event, then people like catch those waves. And like when you invite like a local game designer or someone like a big name in your community, they'll love to go to your event or something like that. I want all of you to kind of like be able to get to that point because it feels really good.
Too cool for that shit.
Do you want an invite to her event?
Actually, we've been trying to schedule something.
Yeah. Okay. So stay tuned.
all right, so let's move on to the last topic. We touched on this a little bit, but it's sustainability. So rather than promoting, this is actually keeping your group going, keeping everyone engaged. We already touched on this a little bit, like Matt was talking about posting memes constantly, cat memes and stuff like that, and how we're talking about welcoming people, stuff like that. So what are some tips on how you can actually keep a group going, Harrison?
I think like I mentioned it earlier, but it's something that's really important to me as a community organizer. Just like build the culture. Like I don't know, you don't like directly sit down with someone and say like when somebody comes in, you need to make sure you greet them. But like like that kind of stuff, that kind of behavior catches. Like other people end up seeing that's what you're doing, and like that's what kind of works. And so like if you like let people feel like they have a voice in your community, give them that voice. And you also want to make sure that people like want to engage with your group in a reason. Because there's so many different things that they can be doing instead of spending time with you and your goals and stuff like that. So like when you do give in so much work, you know, doing the 80. You can do like, when you pull the 20, like once a year I end up saying, hey guys, why don't we like stick together for a 24-hour board game marathon for the Children's Hospital and stuff like that. You end up like seeing all of those people for all of those events, like gathering together for that, and we fill the store. We always have a good time, and it always feels good. Like don't like ask for too much or expect too much outside of the gate, because you know, like once people start feeling like they're doing work, then it's when they're not going to be having fun.
Yeah, and one thing that I really enjoy doing when actually Harrison's actually a pro at this actually in our own group is whenever you are trying to actually keep a group going, you're actually wondering about the best thing you want to do is to keep yourself in their eye constantly. I preferably say do it every day. For example, like if you're on Facebook, you have a Facebook group, post something every day, as no matter how small it is, no matter how many people don't answer, just ask like a simple question. That's relative to whatever you're doing. Like, for example, with board games, we'll ask a question like, hey, what is everyone playing this week? Just even something simple as that. It gets the conversation going. People will then tune in. Honestly, just do that every single day, and it's the easiest thing. It takes 2 minutes out of your day. Maybe after like 3 months of doing it, it's kind of hard to actually think of questions. Rotate the old ones back in. Doesn't matter. But just try to keep things going and keep things engaged. Even if there's one person in the group and they're the only person answering, respond back to them. Have a nice back and forth. When new people join the group, they're going to notice that back and forth. They're going to want to hop in the conversation as well. But is there any other things that you do to keep groups going as well?
Yeah, well, this is it's weird because like I'm really anti-capitalist, but I'm gonna put on my little shitty capitalist hat right now. So as an owner of a business, like there's nothing better than that personal touch, right? Everybody's maybe had that experience where you go to a restaurant or you go somewhere, and like the owner just cruises by the table and is like, oh hey, like you having a good time? Like I own this restaurant. And you're like, oh shit, like I'm gonna go to this restaurant all the time, right? So don't forget, whether you're a business owner, which I think it's an even stronger bond, but even just a community leader, like walk around. If you have like if you're doing like a board game night, literally walk around and introduce yourself to everyone, say hello, ask if people are having a good time, because that makes people feel welcome, it makes people feel special. Put effort into giving a shit about what people are about and into, and listen to their things. People love to be heard, and if you remember some little fact about somebody, like, oh hey, like I know your dog was like not doing great, like is that working out okay?
He's dead.
Now,
He's not dead. He's not dead. He's not dead.
But even then, you get to like have that interaction, right? When you make those interactions happen outside of just this single thing that you're there for, again, that builds that bridge even stronger, because now you have that interpersonal, like we are real people to each other, but now like you give a shit, like you're here, you care. That is like such an incredible thing to build the group, but also to build business, right? There are people that come to the shop and are like literally excited that they like know the owner, right? Because people feel special, they feel cool. Oh, I know the owner, right? Like I'm the same way, right? Like I'm a huge dork about other people like knowing cool people and like, oh, I know the guy that owns this bar, like, and it's like, right? Like, you know, my favorite move, and this is like a bartender tip, but applying this knowledge to everything, is if you see somebody that's even remotely regular, right? So the standard is like usually like third drink, you give somebody a free drink, you know, you get 3 drinks, this one's on me, right? Any good bar is gonna have a solid buyback program for the bartenders, right? So you're gonna allow people to give things away, right? And so the best move is you actually stand them for their first drink, right? Yeah. Hey, like I'm gonna give you your first drink, because that person, you know they're gonna drink 3 or 4 of them, but if you hit them with that first drink for free, you're recognizing that they're a valuable part of your community, and you're making them feel like you notice them and they're special and you value them, right? So this is a little harder in like a non-for-profit board game situation, right? But those of you that are in a profit situation, if somebody forgets to give them some fucking dice, it cost me like $3, right? Oh, I forgot my dice. Like, listen, you're here every week playing D&D, giving me a ton of money. I'm just gonna give you some dice, right? And for $3, $5, like that person is yours for fucking ever, right? Because they are now hooked. You've given them something. You've shown that you really value what they're bringing to the group. And this, you know, it's a little bit weirder in a nonprofit situation where you don't really have as much to kind of give away, so to speak, right? But be super loose, within reason, about giving stuff away, about supporting stuff, about making people feel valued. Yeah. Because I give somebody a beer, you know, when we used to have a restaurant, and, you know, as a bartender and stuff, you give somebody a beer, like, that's a couple bucks, right? like as a bartender, you're going to get tipped way better, right? So you're still going to make more money. But as a bar owner, again, those people are going to keep spending money and they're going to keep coming back, right? So for a very small investment, again, you're going to really convert somebody. You're going to really make them feel special. I just brought pizzas, right? My buddy's move is he just rolls up with he goes to Popeyes. He's really about Popeyes, right? He rolls up to Popeyes, $50 worth of chicken, just whatever, man. But he does that, not every week or anything like that. But shit, man, we got free Popeyes. Everybody's excited. People feel good. They want to come out. Like they're now seeing that you are valuing them in a way that's not just talk, right? When you're putting out yourself in that way, you're going to get that back tenfold, right? Because you are showing that you value more than just, hey, yeah, like we think you're cool. It's like, no, I'm spending money, right?
Yeah.
I'm putting this in, right? When you say, hey, I'm paying for this meetup group, people recognize that. And then when you're like, yeah, like somebody else is like, hey, maybe we should donate some money to help pay for this. People are looking at that very differently because you have been doing that than if you were just like out the gate, give me money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I think too, like if you're doing like a social group or something like that, or like a gaming group or something, you don't have to give money too. It's just like when I know that somebody's like joining the group, if they say, hey, thanks for letting me join this group, Gary. You just say, hey, like welcome to the group. Like I'd love to play a game with you, and like mean it, like make sure that you do end up playing a game with them. But because I think it's easy for someone like me to end up sitting with people that I already know I like the games that they like, so whatever. But welcome opportunities for you to make that connection with somebody, because then they're your friend. Like then they want to come back because you're so cool and stuff like that.
Yeah, and did you?
I was gonna say, if you put out authentic positivity and excitement, like you get that back so much stronger. Right? Just be excited, be passionate. I really hate that, with this little asterisk, I absolutely fucking hate when people say, oh, there's no money in gaming, blah, 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 right? There's plenty of money in gaming. But, the vast majority of us in the industry are here because we are passionate and excited about what it is that we are doing and trying to make that a career. Spread that enthusiasm, spread that excitement, right? I can say, for us in the shop, D&D is my all-time favorite game. I've been playing D&D over 30 years. I grew up in a D&D family. My aunt and uncle actually went to MIT. My uncle was here as a grad student in the 70s. He was on that ground floor of D&D nerdery, right? He's a physics grad student at MIT, as D&D was kind of coming on the scene. So I grew up in this family, but our community for D&D is by far our strongest because I'm the most excited about it, and that enthusiasm transfers, right? Our Warhammer community is not super existent because I could not give any less fucks about Warhammer, right? And so think about the things that you are passionate and excited about and really just push into that, right? We want to diversify, we want to welcome people of all sorts of things, but be aware of what you're excited about and just put it out there. If you create that energy, other people are going to gravitate towards that, right? I get in trouble because I'm trying to work, and somebody comes in and starts asking one of the employees about some D&D shit, and I'm just like, oh, hey, I was doing this paperwork, but what's up with that? Let's talk about if a Dragonborn is actually the best choice for a paladin, right? I want to have those opinions. That's excited. Yeah, I know, same thing. Yeah. But what's your goal? Flavor, mechanics, right? But the things that you are passionate and excited about, those are going to naturally build much more easily. So focus on those things first, because then you're going to be drawing people in who are maybe really excited about D&D, and they're coming in, but then, hey, there's a lot of those people that are excited about other shit too. And they then get encouraged to become champions of the other things that they're interested in. And we really want to create that excitement and attitude of, that sustains it, that keeps it going. Every fucking week, I'm going to play D&D. The one thing that I do for gaming 100% for fun is I have 2 D&D weekly games. That's my thing. Sunday night, Monday night. That's what I do. I look forward to it every week. And that is infectious. We have a couple hundred active monthly D&D players in our, community. And we have 4 dudes who play Warhammer. So it's just super obvious. And it feels very obvious, but when you actually think about it and purposefully lean into that, you're going to get even better results.
Yeah, and now just actually go on that a little bit more. Let's say hypothetically, if you are not interested in something, and ask around and just see if other people are actually interested in different things. We do surveys all the time where we're asking people, hey, are you interested in this? Hey, are you interested in that? What this usually does is that this actually, over time, it actually helps people realize, oh, am I like the main person that likes this? Am I like for example, we have our Game On group. We also have 2 other subgroups of it now, technically
Tough
3.
Chits.
We have we have a Tough Chits group, we have a Escape On group, and we also have a market group where people just sell stuff on. So in all those markets, the thing is that all those things started because for one, we started asking people about what other people wanted to do and what their interest was. And then we started noticing over time there were some people that really stood out, that they really were involved and really enjoyed these other things. And to help us actually keep the group growing, we just said, hey, why don't you take over this whole thing? Since you seem to be the most interested person in doing like extremely heavy games and whatever, like if it's D&D games and stuff like that, then we had that person take over that almost kind of division of the group, which actually then kept the group going, kept things going, being more alive. We had more community leaders in the group. Mm-hmm. So it just helps everything become a lot more easier for yourself, and it makes things a lot more manageable. It makes things 10 times better. You can't show up every single night to do an event. It's honestly unrealistic unless if you own the place like Matt. So it's like,
Fuck that noise. I still go home sometimes.
But yeah, so it's really hard to do it by yourself. So actually, one thing that makes it really easy for yourself to actually grow and maintain a community is actually to get other leaders, ask around and see what other people are interested in. And you never know, you might find other people that are really heavily interested in other things, and they want to actually take over those things for you, which makes things a million times better.
So if you want to run Warhammer in New Haven.
Yeah, yeah, there you go.
If you're actively looking for a champion, that would be great.
But before we actually end this, we got maybe a few minutes left. Does anyone have any questions?
So the biggest hurdle I've found in community building, especially board games, is teaching games.
Okay.
I'm curious what your thoughts are.
So as a designer, not to cut you off because we want to try to bounce through it. So as a designer, that's something that we're addressing more and more, is that on-ramping, right? We talk about video games, it's really easy because you enforce the rules, right? I can't walk through the fucking wall, right? Like I can do this. I might be bad at it, but I can kind of figure that out. Tabletop game, no such luck. More and more designers are working through that problem. So there are more and more games that are coming up with that. Legacy games, that was actually the primary goal. When Rob was developing Risk Legacy was, I want to teach you how to do more complicated things, but we're going to start here in this more simple way. Learning games really well is important. Having people that are excited and champions for that game that know that game is really important. I can teach somebody and get them playing D&D in 5 minutes. Yeah. Like, absolutely. But I also used to do a ton of shit for Wizards of the Coast. I've taught literally thousands of people how to play D&D, so I have honed my pitch and the way to get people into that. So think about the ways that you can draw people into it. I'm a big fan of, like, let's start playing, and this is a learning game, and I will explain to you what's going on. But that is a perennial difficult question that is very hard to solve.
Yeah, two real quick things before we move on to the next question. One thing, watch Shut Up and Sit Down's video on how to teach games. It's fantastic. And 2, try to, when you're hosting game nights, sometimes you got to take the sacrifice of not playing the games yourself and you're just teaching people's games. So that's the big things. When I ran my bar nights, that's why I did. Next question.
You touched a little bit on this towards the end, but you mentioned that having that one-on-one connection is very important. I run a small gaming company. We do narrative adventure games, and when I first started,
I
like
want to
10
be your
years
friend
ago,
after this.
Yeah.
I said I'd like to be your friend.
when I first started like 10 years ago, it was very easy to have that connection because I was very small and I had very few customers, so it was very easy to like write everyone who bought the game and be like, yeah, thank you, what do you like, and have a dialogue going. And years later, they thanked me for that.
Mm-hmm.
But as time went on and I grew, that's become impossible.
Yeah.
I've been having like a few dozen customers every week. Now I've got several thousand.
Yeah.
So how does that scale up?
All right, so shitty capitalist hat. Perception is reality, right? And so if you create a perception that you are accessible, that you are personally invested in their stuff, you can do that in ways that are not actually like truly authentic. And it's not that I don't want to do that, and I absolutely hate that I'm like saying this, but if you put yourself out there, this actually leads to another thing that also gets to the inclusivity that we started with. Being a real person is, I think, hugely important. Putting your sort of like who you are out there, post something about your dog, right? Because then you're a real person, right? Even if it's more one way, you are still creating that natural interactivity that's not just, well, this little circle of what it is that we do, right? Putting a little bit more of yourself out there. Hey, like this is a selfie of me, whatever, doing something stupid and fun. like now you are creating more of a personal narrative with those people, which is going to build that bridge, even if you can't give them back that exact personal touch. But if you are accessible feeling, that's almost as good.
We got time for like one more quick question, if anyone has any more questions. Nope. All right, sweet. So thank you guys for coming out. Yeah, thank you.
I will also lurk around outside for a little bit if people have like more like smaller scale questions or whatever, or want to chat. So
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah, thank you guys for coming out.